All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today for this Residency Success webinar. Is there hope for unmatched graduates? And my name is Dr. Shea Data. I'm the CEO of Residency Success. I'm not sure if you've seen us on our page or our group or attended any of our seminars before, but we're basically a residency mentorship service that helps guide you from the moment you leave let's say medical training or medical school in your country and try to come to the U.S. to do medical practice here. It's a long road. There's a lot of pitfalls. Basically, there's a lot of things that you need to know, and that's kind of the gap that we fill to help you struggle less through this journey, okay? So today we have a very, very special guest. His name is Dr. Amish Shah. He is with us today, as well as Natasha Taylor, the Director of Operations for us at Residency Success. And we also have a candidate that actually is in our program. Her name is Dr. Irina Balin, who will be very graciously sharing her journey about applying for assistant physician position and how basically you have to go through this whole journey and what paperwork you have to do, okay? So bear with us if there's any technical difficulties. You can ask questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to them intermittently between the slides, and of course, we'll try to answer them towards the end as well. I've just referenced our website as well as our email in case you need to reach us after this webinar for any questions. We're happy to help. All right. Natasha, would you introduce Dr. Shah?
Yeah, with pleasure. So just so you know who I am, I do work with Residency Success as the Director of Operations. My background is actually in human talent acquisition and management. I've worked with many executives throughout my career who were in job transition. So I came on board with Residency Success last year to help everybody who is interested in matching into U.S. residency program. And with pleasure, I love to introduce you guys to Dr. Amish Shah. He is currently representing the U.S. State House of Representatives as a congressman in District 12 of Arizona. He is trained as a doctor and got his training at Northwestern University. He is originally from Chicago, Illinois, and he is currently an ER physician. And he is, the main reason why he is joining us today is to talk about how he is championing a bill within the Arizona House of Representatives of helping people who are seeking to practice in the states with granting them licensure as physician assistants to help underserved communities within this country. There is a shortage of practicing physicians here in this country, and this is a way to get exposure to people who are underserved in communities in this country and also get exposure to physicians who are looking to practice in the States. So thank you, Dr. Shah, for joining us today and talking about what you're doing as a physician here and also your work as a congressman. So I'd like to pass it over to you.
Thanks. Appreciate you guys having me. Natasha kind of told you a little bit about what I'm doing. I'm a member of the Arizona House of Representatives. I'm also a physician. I continue to practice emergency medicine all across Arizona. I am happy to share with you a little bit about SB 1271, which was a bill that we heard this year, and it made its way all the way through the legislature and was signed by the governor on May 10th. It would take effect after the 90 days after the end of our session. The session has not actually ended yet, and so we're looking at probably the effective date of the law to be around October 1st. That being the case, probably by the time things get set up properly, it would be for the following year. that such a program would be available. This is an assistant physician program, and basically opens up some spots for people who have attempted to match and didn't match, or you did match, but for non-disciplinary reasons, you had to withdraw and are now looking for something different while you apply again for the match. A couple of the, more than a few states, I think it's a handful of states at this point, in addition to Arizona, have programs like this. The Arizona program is unique, though, in the way the law is constructed. And we can get into some of that if Shay wants to, and we can go through that through the questions. But basically, this will be a pathway that is open starting probably next year, starting July 1st. And it has some particulars to it in terms of who can get in and who can't and why. And we'll go over some of that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dr. Shah. This is just our QR code in case someone wants to reach out to us, ask further questions after the event, etc. You can just scan this and we'll display it again towards the end, okay? So what is the need for physician associates? Basically, we all know there's a shortage, right, on primary care physicians in the U.S. from particular medical clinics to urban and especially rural counties, right? This is according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Of those, 225 are in Missouri. It's disproportionately high amount compared with the state's population, okay? We also have with us today one of our candidates, Dr. Irina Balin, who has applied and basically went through this pathway herself, and she'll share a little bit about the application process and certain tips with you as well. So basically, how did it start, right? It was sort of to fill this need that Dr. Shah talked about. Basically, Missouri was the first state in the United States to enact this legislation, creating the new professional designation. So we want to be very clear about the nomenclature. It's assistant physician, okay? This is back in 2014, not physician assistant, right? Physician assistant is PA. That's a different school. You have to go in, you have to pass the boards. And so it's not PA, it's AP, assistant physician, because this is a track for medical graduates, all right? So the Missouri law allows the assistant physicians to provide primary care services to individuals in rural and underserved areas with limited physician supervision. So you did not need postgraduate residency training to work as an assistant physician, okay? Similarly, Arkansas, Kansas, Utah also passed assistant physician legislation. So Missouri itself was like a front runner, okay, to combat this problem. So legislation found the need for a new type of provider and the untapped potential of assistant physicians. So there are some rigorous qualifications. Obviously, you have to go to the state board website to find more about this, okay? And I think it's improved a lot of people's lives, as well as helped physicians that were unmatched to keep their clinical skills sharp, as well as network, right? And basically try the following year for match. One thing I want to kind of clarify about what you said, Dr. Shah. So this is someone who has had to apply for the match and can prove that they tried and did not match. Is that correct?
Sorry about that, was muted. Yes, that is correct. I haven't studied the other states, but with Arizona, and I know we copied some of the other states, the program is meant for people who applied for the match and then did not match, or you did match, but for non-disciplinary reasons, you decided to withdraw.
Right. And I want to expand on the non-disciplinary because that's very important. I went through several states' websites, including Arizona, and the one big thing is you cannot have a criminal, like non-disciplinary or criminal reason that you did not match, or have something in your background that's going to. It's the same thing that, you know, when we apply for our state boards, they do a background check and everything, right? So they have to also have something with the equivalent to make sure you don't have a criminal background or were barred from doing residency or matching for any reason, okay? DWIs, you know, like court history, criminal history, things of that nature, okay? So that's very, very important. So this goes into this slide, basically, how does this license differ from training physician or permanent physician licenses? I think we kind of summarized that already. But the most important thing is individuals with this assistant physician or similar license are required to have the supervision of a board certified physician or an agreement by a medical center or hospital. So can you tell us, Dr. Shah, how this might work in Arizona?
I can see this working in a couple different ways. You know, that there are requirements put on the physician trainer in order to monitor the physician trainee adequately. So you have to have direct supervision in Arizona for the first 6 months. After that, it can be indirect supervision if that person is found to be satisfactory. There's some reporting requirements. So whoever's doing this has to make sure that they are registered with the Board of Medicine. And so that physician who is doing that training is going to have to keep in communication and file reports with the medical board. You know, just practically speaking, when you think about this and these kinds of requirements, probably what's going to happen is that the kinds of settings that are going to take people like this are going to be bigger medical centers, because they usually have the administrative personnel and the resources to be able to hire somebody to administer this program and say, okay, we're going to keep track of each of these people. Each person has a designated training physician, because usually physicians aren't really good at the administrative part of all this. All they want to do is practice medicine, and these bigger centers will have somebody who, kind of like a residency coordinator, would be taking these people, matching them up, and then filling out all the paperwork and filing the reports so that this all stays legal. So I could see how some of our bigger, here in Arizona, some of our bigger medical groups and chains will probably take advantage of this opportunity in order to have an assistant physician and you know, a mutually beneficial situation.
Right. I wonder, though, because it often says that it's trying to fill a need in the more rural communities, that how would you think that would work? I mean, they may not have the bigger medical centers, so perhaps they would make some type of exception. I'm not sure. So
yeah. It is interesting. I mean, the way I read the bill, there's no real cap on the number of people that you can have in the state doing this. Again, it's limited by the fact that only you have to have not matched, and that number of people is actually limited, you know, as a whole. There's not that many people that apply for the match and then don't match. So I think it numbers in the 1,000+ range across the country. So, you know, some percentage of those people might want to come to Arizona if those spots open up. In Arizona specifically, a good question is this limited to simply like the underserved areas? And that is to be seen. My understanding is that the bill does not specifically say that in Arizona that it has to be a rural or an underserved area. So at this point, from what I understand, we don't have that requirement here.
Okay, all right. And I feel like, you know, like you said, if there's another year for this actually to go live, I think there will be a lot of ways for us to interpret things going forward, you know, because it's so new, and probably, like you're saying, you're kind of mirroring what the other states are doing. And in that regard, I would like to kind of turn it over to Irina Balin. Dr. Balin is one of our candidates, and she recently applied for one of these pathways, and I wanted her to share a little bit about the experience. So, Dr. Balin, would you tell us a little bit about why you applied for this and how long the process took you and where you applied?
Yeah, good evening. So I applied last year for a residency and unfortunately didn't match. So I was looking what I can do in the meantime. So I found out that Missouri offers this possibility. I applied at the end of March, so in mid-May I obtained the license. So I would say it took about five to 6 weeks. Because I'm an IMG, so it was a requirement to be ECFMG certified. As I was told, the step 3 was not required. However, I passed it last year. And also the home residency was also not required, but it was like preferred for that. The only documents additional to the ECFMG certificates, the USMLE scores, the home license, I mean, the license from my home country. They also checked the criminal background, and also I was required to have a work permit.
Okay.
I communicated with the health board probably twice during these 6 weeks, and mostly because they asked me why I had 4 months gap between my previous job and my first job here in the US, and it was just because I was waiting for my work permit. And yeah, I mean, I have the license, which is a temporary license. Probably, no, not probably, but it's a temporary, and it will expire in January 2022.
Okay.
But
Are you required to? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say it requires to have a supervisor.
Right. And do you have to obtain your own supervisor, or do you go and kind of find, like, or do they match you?
Yeah, I have to find one, and unfortunately, I don't know. It looks like they are looking. I mean, there is a need of assistant physicians in Missouri, but in the same time, there's no easy way to find a job there. Most of the positions I found, it was a volunteer position, and mostly most of them are located in Kansas City. So it's kind of, I mean, I have to contact a possible supervisor. It's my responsibility to find a supervisor.
Okay. Interesting. So I think also, since we have Dr. Shah here, basically we can talk a little bit about, I think I was having this discussion about this with him earlier. I was like, would this be an unpaid position or a paid position? And what did you say about that, Dr. Shah? What do you think in Arizona? Yeah, mute. So,
I'm sorry about that. I apologize. I was muted.
That's no problem.
Yeah. So what I was discussing with you earlier was the fact that this would be work, and I think that you would be caught under the minimum wage laws. Now, Irina, I heard your statement, but the thing is that I couldn't see this. It's hard to see this as volunteer work. I think that you would at least have to be paid minimum wage, if nothing else, in order for them to set this up properly. I mean, it's kind of hard to expect somebody to just work there for 40, 50, 60 hours a week and not get paid. I think it would violate probably a minimum wage law. Our minimum wage here is $12.15 in the state of Arizona. So, working 60 hours a week, that would be a salary of $36,500. Now, like I said, this bill just passed, and the law hasn't even though it was signed by the governor, it hasn't actually taken effect and won't take effect until October. So we won't see how practically these groups are setting this thing up. So I heard about the Missouri experience and people saying, well, you have to find your own mentor, and there's no easy way to coordinate these positions. Hopefully, the folks that will set this kind of thing up in Arizona, if they find it beneficial, will have some sort of information either on their websites, or there will be some kind of coordination. Again, right now, because the law has passed, but it still hasn't taken effect, we simply, it's so new, we don't have any infrastructure or any kind of practical way for this to actually work just yet. But that will all come into existence by the time July 1st of next year comes around, assuming that some of these medical centers want to have this happen for them. But I imagine this being a paid position in some way. I mean, it would be hard to say that this was a purely voluntary position. I can't see this as volunteer work.
Right.
Well, I have only one clinic in St. Louis which offers a paid position. As you said, it's a minimum wage, but I couldn't find any, like, even for volunteer, it's not so easy. The only 2 clinics in Missouri, so maybe I'm wrong and I don't know how to search for that, but it's not, I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think with Dr. Shah on this, who voted for this bill, we didn't even ask him why he voted for it, but we will ask him now. Perhaps it'll be a little bit more organized than the other states because he's got the best interests of physicians in mind. So why did you vote for this bill, Dr. Shah?
Well, the bill was kind of introduced last year by my colleague who's a Republican. Her name is now Senator Bartow, and she had told me about this bill and what the idea was behind it. I think she's trying to do something good, and that is that we have people who have been through medical school, and then after they finish medical school, sometimes for various reasons things just don't work out. So you have a match, and then you have a scramble, and then sometimes people, despite the scramble, can't find something, and it would be a real shame if you have all this medical knowledge and training, and then you're just kind of sitting on the sidelines, not being able to participate in some way or continue to work on your medical training and education, either because there weren't spots, or it's possible that you also weren't up to snuff, but you need a little extra time in order to work on your clinical skills and get up to that place. And it's, we don't want people after all of this time and effort in medical training to then not be able to work, and especially when we have shortages all over the country of physicians, of healthcare personnel, all kinds. So it's kind of a win-win. We want to be able to fill those shortages. We want to be able to take those people and let them continue, let them try. And at the same time, we have some guardrails on the process. There are people that, unfortunately, despite going through medical school and doing what they needed to do, unfortunately can't quite clear the bar. And for me, that meant, okay, there have to be guardrails on this process. And the bill does a really good job of allowing the opportunity and putting the guardrails in place. The guardrails are that it's a one-to-one assignment between each trainee and trainer in the state of Arizona. It also means that it's during that 1 year, you're approved for 1 year, and then you have to renew each year for a maximum of 3 years. You can only do it for 3 years. After that, you're done. And during the first 6 months, it's direct supervision, meaning it says in the law that the physician has to be physically present around you. And then after that, you can do indirect supervision if that person graduates to that level. So you have to keep in mind patient safety during all of this. You can't have people also be in a position where they may have a not great outcome, but also allows all this to happen. So when I saw that the bill was a combination of efforts from all of these people, including the Arizona Medical Association, which is our physician group, the Republicans, the Democrats, all of us came together and had a hand in improving the bill and getting it to a much better place. We said, okay, this is a good thing, and that's why I supported it. I voted for it both in committee and on the floor.
No, that's great. And I do agree about the guardrails, right? Because you have to have some type of standard. I mean, in order for people to qualify and work and properly take care of people without causing harm. So I absolutely agree with that. There are a lot of questions rolling in. Natasha, would you read out a few of the questions or?
Yeah, sure, for sure. You know, some of the questions that are coming in, and you know, some of them are very similar, but I think, you know, one thing that are in people's minds is, do you foresee this opportunity, you know, for people going into this assistant physician role as either a barrier to them applying for match in the States, or as something that would help them as a CV booster?
Well, I think this can be nothing but a help. I mean, first of all, the program is designed so that, you know, during that 1 year, the law requires, in Arizona anyway, the law requires that you apply for the match during that year. You actually have to apply. And the idea is that what we're doing is we're saying, okay, look, we don't want you to just sit around for a year. And so let's get you in there. Let's get you this training, 6 months direct and then 6 months indirect if you can clear that bar. But in the meantime, we're preparing you specifically to apply for the residency. You have to apply for the match, and then you can do it 2 more times. But each year, you still have to apply for the match. You have to have a minimum of 3 programs that you have to apply to and rank in order to get in. So, I mean, if you just didn't even get 3 interviews, it's going to be really hard for you to continue to be in this program. But this is designed to assist people to get them into residency. This is not a substitute for residency.
So some of the other questions that have rolled in, and Irina touched upon this when she was talking about her own experience, is that, you know, finding a supervisor or mentor was a challenge. Do you foresee having infrastructure in place within Arizona to combat the issue that she ran into as she was looking for somebody to sponsor her?
I mean, I think that is, you know, we discussed that a little bit just now, and I think that it's hard for me to have a crystal ball and look into the future and see whether or not this is going to be something that's going to be robust in the state of Arizona, or are we going to just see a few positions and it's going to be sparse? I don't know the answer, actually. It really depends on how much of an appetite there is for this. I think some of the medical centers will want to get into this based on maybe some of the experience in some of these other places. And I would hope that they open up some positions. They'll probably see how this goes for them and see, you know, the first few classes, if they have success with it, if they feel like, you know, you have people that are coming in that they feel were good additions, took good care of the patients, that they got something out of it, and then that it was mutually beneficial, I'm sure that they would want to continue more of the programs. But I mean, at this point, I mean, with it being so new, I'm sorry, I just can't say what it's going to be like in the future. It's a wait and see for Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So these are some of the states where this law has been enacted: Missouri, as we talked about, Arkansas, New Hampshire, Kansas, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona. And again, if you're just joining us, there are people from stragglers. I'm Dr. Shay Data from Residency Success. We have Natasha Taylor, who's our Director of Operations. We have Dr. Amish Shah, who is an ER physician in Arizona, as well as a state representative, and he's basically voted for this bill to support doctors, and we're basically discussing different pathways and states, and every state probably has a little bit of a different you know, nuances in terms of the application. But one thing is for sure, you have to have a clean criminal background history, have passed USMLE 1 and 2. You don't necessarily need step 3, but you have had to apply for the match at least once, and you should be applying every year thereafter that you are in this program, because it's almost like, it reminds me of like having like training wheels almost. So you're like on the training wheel, and you're like like going and you're being supported, you know, and getting some, you know, clinical experience and networking and stuff, but they still expect you to, you know, like fulfill the primary goal, which is matching subsequent years, which I think is fantastic. You know, it's a win-win. And you're right, they absolutely should be paid. I just don't think it's fair for anybody to give up and sacrifice this much of their life and give some type of service and not be paid fairly, you know. But then again, you can talk about how criminal it is, the amount our residents work and how much they could get paid. It's really minimum wage if you think about it. Residency, you know, like if I wrote it, I think I like made the calculation for the amount of hours I worked in my neurology residency. It was like $10.75 an hour, you know, depending on how much I was making. It's just horrible. So yeah, I mean, even if you guys get paid minimum wage, it's not fair, but it's likely very similar to what you're going to be paid in residency. So, all right. So I think we covered a few of these things. Some of these things we don't know yet. So if you're not a U.S. citizen or green card holder, can they participate in this? Arena, can you shed a little bit of light on this? Did they specifically tell you anything about this?
Well, it was not a requirement to be a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, but it was a requirement to have a work permit. And
okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know about any visa status or anything, but probably yes. I mean, it's necessary to have a, but I'm not sure. But it was a requirement to have a work permit.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that would make sense to me. And what are the requirements to qualify? Obviously, you can go on the website. I'm not going to go through every single requirement. We've touched on a few already. It's pretty intuitive, I feel. So what requirements do other states have that's different than Arizona's? I think they're all pretty similar from what I saw. I think certain states favor you to be rural as opposed to, Dr. Shah was saying, Arizona won't really have that stipulation. I think it'll be wherever you can kind of find a collaborator, physician collaborator to work with you. So how do you feel about this, Dr. Shah, this question? Will they have a better chance of matching into residency after they go through the program?
I mean, I used to be in a teaching program at Mount Sinai in New York City, and we would sit down with the program director and go through the residency matching applications and, you know, all of our medical students. And so I've been on the other side of that, where I've been the one interviewing, reviewing applications, and deciding what our rank list was going to be on behalf of the ER program there. And I would say that, you know, if I had to think about somebody like who had this kind of practical experience and has worked within the system for like a year, and that person has had direct supervision for 6 months, indirect for 6 months, and they come with very good recommendations from that physician, especially if that physician is known to other people around. I think that can only help your chances. I mean, it certainly is a better thing compared to doing nothing over the course of the year. I mean, I can't imagine somebody in the position of a you know, residency director, a program director, saying I'd rather have somebody who did nothing. Now, there is a third option, of course, as we know, it's research, right? So a lot of people do that when they don't match. They do a year of research or something like that. So, you know, it's something to be to think about. But at the end of the day, people who have this kind of clinical experience probably would be, assuming they came out with a decent recommendation and good feelings all through, and they improved, and they showed growth, and they showed clinical competency. I can't imagine how that would be a detriment, and only really would be a help.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And it's the same thing with me, you know, when I go through candidates and their applications. And a lot of times we get the repeat applications from the previous year. And I always check to see what's improved since last year. If they've shown significant improvement, if there's new things there, if they've grown somehow, if they've taken a new exam, if they've bettered themselves, that's what you're looking for. And I absolutely think this would be wonderful in terms of a way to repackage yourself and sell yourself in a way. And really, that's what the interview is for. At the point that you get the interview, they're already interested in you. You know, your job now is to show you your personality. And I think people just, it's very difficult, especially if you come from a different country, to kind of get that feel for interviewing. Or it's not even that you come from a different country. I have native speakers here that perhaps go to Caribbean schools or go abroad to school, but they've been in school their entire lives. They've never interviewed, you know, so they don't have the flair that it takes to actually, like, you know, go through behavioral questions or psychological interview questions, or just kind of be relaxed through the process. So that's kind of what we try and teach them through our program, you know. So I think it all kind of makes sense in, you know, like in an entire package. Like, there's no magic, because everybody always loves to just put their scores out there, this many years from graduation, I did this, and I'm just like, no, I wish I had like a crystal ball that I can put all these numbers into. It's not just your US Only scores, it's just not this, it's not just that. Like, in the end, it's your personality holding all these together, right? If your personality can't sell itself, you know, at the end, it's just not going to work. So we kind of try to help you hold it.
And I think you brought up 2 points that I think are really, really important. The number one, for Arizona, the law actually says that you must have passed step 1 and step 2. Step 3, however, you could pass during that year, which really would only enhance your application. It's another shot to show that you were growing and you were improving by getting a really nice score on step 3. That's, you know, something you could choose to do. The second thing you mentioned, though, is that it's skill level, right? So we all know that medical school is mostly academic, and they fill your head full of theoretical knowledge, and the last 2 years are clinical, but it really is different from having real responsibility. Let's put it that way. You know, as a third year and fourth year, you're just kind of showing up and kind of observing a lot, and yeah, you get to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but truly the real work that you do of taking care of people as an employee, as somebody who's actually responsible and taking care of people, is done by the residents, is done by interns, right? And when people are supervised actually being employees, having to show up to work, take responsibility, be professional, all that gives people a chance to see, how do you work? Are you going to show up? Are you going to show up on that? Because we know people who are really, really smart but make terrible employees, and you know, a lot of times we don't want residents like that. So this really gives you a chance, another chance to shine.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. And, you know, there's other common sense things that sometimes are not so common sense to certain people, you know, like how to behave in clinical rotations. So this is kind of like one big, long clinical rotation, right? It's like almost like doing a year-long or 36 months. And I'll bet you, like, let's say I was in Arizona, or you were the supervising physician, let's say Dr. Shah, and you had an excellent person under you, right? Maybe Dr. Ballin works with you, and she's just busting it out. Like, she's just there, and she's like doing a great job. I bet you would help somehow, you know, to like get her connected with somebody, or, you know, and like, you have to have heart, because the thing with physicians is like each one teach one, right? So you have to, once you are mentoring somebody around beneath you or next to you or next level, it's our responsibility to reach back and teach the next generation. And I bet you if you did a good job, that person that you're working under is going to do their level best to help you. But you also have to wonder, if they're not helping you, what are you doing wrong?
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, it's the real world. Who you know matters. So the fact that you are, you know, have somebody now that you know who's seen you for a year and is willing to, and I mean, if she did a really, really great job, you better believe that I would go to bat, and I would call up some of my friends and say, hey, by the way, I had a really excellent assistant physician this year, and this is somebody you should consider for your match program. So, you know, this is the way in which, and of course people can, you know, not only just the right letters, but people will call you on the phone and ask, hey, what did you think about this person's year? And they'll get a sense from how you speak about them of whether or not they were really good. And, you know, they'll ask you about their strengths and weaknesses. And that's how a lot of this goes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny. Like we didn't even, I promise I did not prompt Dr. Shah for any of these, because it's almost like you're mirroring so many of the things that I say on all of my lectures, you know?
Sure.
So it's absolutely true. I mean, it's funny, like, you know, there's probably thousands and thousands of ER physicians in the country, but the community is small. Like, it's like, you know, not even 2 degrees of separation. You're going to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. Or I'll run into somebody else that might know someone. So always watch your behavior, you know, around people before you decide to disrespect someone or speak to them a certain way, or or show up or be like, you know it all or whatever. Like it matters. Like you have to stay humble throughout this process, no matter where you are, you know, because in the end, we're there to take care of patients, not to stroke our own egos, right? So,
Amen.
Right, yes, amen. All right, so I think we basically covered all of this. The one thing we didn't talk about is that it should be within 3 years. This is I don't know how strict they'll be about this, Dr. Shah. Within 3 years before graduation from a medical school, and the graduation occurred within the 3-year period immediately preceding application. Because a lot of the foreign medical grads have changed locations and moved countries and stuff. So they don't necessarily fall into this 3-year period.
Well, the law is the law. You cannot violate statute.
Okay.
You cannot violate a statute. No entity, no business is going to be willing to lose their license over violating a law. Violating the law is a really big deal. So when it's written, it will be followed to the letter, because nobody's going to risk their license violating, you know, creating a felony or whatever the penalty is for it.
Yeah, you don't want to come here and break laws before you even become a doctor, you know, or I'm sorry, you're physicians, I should say, or get into residency. So you have to complete an approved postgraduate residency, is proficient in the English language. I know there's like, most people have to take the OET, but I wonder if they'll require an English proficiency test or something. I don't know how they'll test for that. That's another thing. So collaborative practice arrangement means it's an agreement between a physician and an associate physician that meets the requirements of this section 32-145, whatever it is. All right, so basically we've kind of gone through the meat of this program or this bill. Are there any other questions that we've missed out there, Natasha? And we'll open it up to some more questions. If you want to ask anything of Dr. Shah directly, you can unmute yourself instead of typing it into the chat as well.
Okay, so one person asked, with these new laws coming, or bills that are hopefully becoming laws coming into play, can people apply to programs in multiple states? Is there any sort of limitations to that?
I mean, I don't see. This is not a matching program. This is a, you know, this is something where people would just agree to you know, do this kind of a year. So yeah, absolutely, you could apply to multiple states and multiple places with you know, and take the best offer that you got. So this is just a pure open market type of exchange.
Press 1 for call in, press 2 for call out.
Okay.
Enter your assigned ID.
Can everybody mute themselves? I don't know.
Have entered.
All right. If there's any questions, please free to unmute yourself and ask now. You don't have to be shy. You don't have to ask in the chat anymore, because we're kind of done with our kind of review of all this. Go ahead.
I'm seeing a couple of questions in here. It says, you know, there's somebody named Gladdy Matthews. It says, how can more states adopt this law? Well, I mean, that comes down to advocacy and legislative process. So this bill was sponsored by Senator Bartow because she believed it was important. People who are citizens, constituents can approach their lawmakers and go to various state lawmakers in those other states and approach them and say, hey, you know, these other states have created something like this. Would you guys be willing to sponsor such a mirror bill in another state legislature? And a lot of times people want to do things like this because state legislators like to solve problems. Believe it or not, politicians actually really like this part because they get to do something good for people. And that is a good thing. It's part of the reason why we all go into public service. And so, you know, if it's something that is a win-win and beneficial, usually you'll find a state legislator willing to take this up. So it's just a matter of introducing some of the state legislators across the country to this kind of concept. So that's one. I mean, that gets into political advocacy. Number two, there was another question on here that says, understanding the language correctly, anybody who graduated from med school before 2019 would not be eligible. That is correct. You know, you have to have graduated within the 3-year period before. They basically only want people who applied for the match and then didn't match. And it's strictly meant to be those people in that very temporary period right after graduation to be able to take advantage of a program like this. So my understanding so far about this is, no, if you graduated a while ago, probably you would not be eligible for something like this. I'll have to reread Arizona's statute again on this, but based on Shay's slide, it would seem that was the case. And then I saw one more in here somewhere. And then somebody wrote, do you foresee any possibility these could be positions appearing as unpaid experiences? Yeah, it's possible. We have seen violations of what we consider to be law. Some people set it up as a volunteer position and, you know, put it through that way. I think that, you know, if somebody alerted the attorney general of any state of something like this, they could potentially get in trouble. So I don't think people would be willing to violate a minimum wage law. That gets into what we call anti-slavery, right? You're not allowed to make people work for less than minimum wage. I can't imagine people would be doing that, but you know, it's happened before. People have tried to do things like this where they try to pay people less than minimum wage or try to make a real responsible position voluntary, and that doesn't really, you know, you have to tread really carefully about that. And then I think I just saw one more. Shay, I'm just trying to get through all the questions that anybody asked.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And I see something about residents like PAs and NPs. I mean, you know, I get it. You know, I don't want to comment on that now. And then it says, so I think we got most of the questions. It says for the new AZ law, would applicants need to find a mentor? Yeah, it's going to be a process that we don't know yet, where people are going to have to find these training physicians out there, and we don't know what that looks like just yet. And Yelena asks, did you apply for the license first or did you get a supervisor first? Well, the process again is you don't match. And then after you don't match and then you scramble, and obviously you can't get into the scramble. From that point to July 1st is when you're going to start looking and you're going to find that supervisor. You don't need to actually take step 3. So theoretically, you don't have to apply for the medical license, is my understanding of how our law works. I think that rounds out all the questions.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of frustration, Dr. Shah, and a lot of the candidates, because there are people that don't meet that 3-year mark, and obviously because of life events or having to move or starting a family, they have missed that gap, that timeline. The older graduates, you know, have had like a career in their country and then come here. So I know this is something, it's better than nothing, but still it's a difficult thing when people are a little frustrated that they've tried to match for several years in a row. But I always say that there is something wrong there, especially if your scores are good and you don't have multiple attempts, because the multiple attempts kick you out automatically. But then if you network and show your work and do well in your observerships or clinical rotations, you can network and get further. And we've had candidates match that way too. But there's got to be something wrong, like you've done something wrong. Either like, and then when I look at their application, either their CV is a little messed up, their personal statement doesn't tell a good story, or their, interviewing skills are not up to par, or they're not doing enough to push or sell themselves outside the time that they're actually applying. Because the work is never finished. It's always continuing, right? In your rotations, outside rotations, keeping in touch with people. Once you're done, people are like, oh, yay, I'm done with this rotation, on to the next one. But keeping in touch with those mentors is very important, and trying to basically stay in touch and try to help them any way you can still, because almost everything's become virtual now. People are doing research remotely, they're trying, they're doing even telerotations now, we couldn't have ever imagined during our time, right? So, which is interesting. So I think, was that all the questions, Natasha?
Yeah, I think we captured everybody at this point.
I'm seeing
one. If we did, is there one more?
Yeah, I'm seeing one more from Faryal Murtaza. It says here, so what would people with more than 3 years old graduation do? Because there are a number of grads who are older. I'll have to see. Shay, I did go back while we were just sitting. I did go back and look through the bill, and I was looking for that graduation requirement. Maybe I could be wrong, but I did not see it in the final version of the bill that did get signed. So
okay. Maybe that was the initial one.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, how exactly that time period would be. So maybe if it wasn't included in the final version of the bill, somebody more than 3 years could, do this. It says there is in section 1, it says within a 2-year period immediately preceding initial application for a transitional training permit, they did all these things. So there is some kind of time limit put in there, but we'll see. It is possible that this could somehow allow somebody to from before 3 years. And I get it. I mean, some people really have been in this for a long time, but you'd have to look around at the different states and see if maybe there was a state that did not have that sort of time requirement. And that's it. That was the last question.
Okay. So I think what I'll very graciously ask Dr. Shah to do is, if he has time within the next week or so, to just clarify the time, and then we'll post it in our group if he has any clarification about the timeline in terms of graduation and applying for this. And maybe I had an older version of the bill that I found, and so then we'll update you accordingly. And I had put a QR code for anyone who's not currently enrolled in our program, if you'd like to ask us more questions about it and discuss anything, or if you have questions, we can talk about it. But I guess I will thank you now, Dr. Shah, and basically say goodbye to you, so we can tell whoever's interested a little bit more about our program, so that I don't bore you. I know you had a long shift and you've been traveling as well. So we very much appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Glad to help out. I wish everybody in your program luck. I hope you guys understand that Shay is doing just such a wonderful thing here to help you guys and provide you with that gap. It is certainly a lot of information, a lot of orientation, and something like this kind of program will seriously help you guys get oriented and get yourself matched and get yourself through the training and to a career that you really want. So I'm happy to help. I can't tell you how much time I've spent myself in medical education, and we want to see all of you succeed. We want to see all of you guys get through the entire process and go on to become attendings who take care of patients and people who we can call our beloved colleagues. So once again, thank you so much for having me. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.
All right, thanks, Dr. Shah. That is so great. We really need this positive sort of, like affirmations, because many of us going through this become very depressed and kind of like, don't have like much even confidence in ourselves. And I was there one time, and that's really why Residency Success got started. So thanks so much for the kind words, and we'll definitely have you back again on our platform.
Sounds good. Take care. I'll see you guys later.
Take care. Bye-bye. So this is basically something I'd like to tell you guys. A goal without a plan is just a wish, right? And I know that a lot of you have been at this for a long time. We understand your pain. A lot of the people that joined today are already part of our program, so we feel lucky that you've chosen us. But we have like a special kind of discount that's valid until Wednesday, June 23rd, midnight Eastern time for 5% off our basic and platinum plan. You can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask any questions of our program. Basically, we do all aspects of residency, mentorship, training in terms of interview prep, as well as all of your documents, personal statement, CV, as well as letter of recommendation, letter of interest. So we help you with everything. And obviously, you know, we care about your well-being as well. So we look at it as a whole person approach. And we try to keep you encouraged, but there's a lot of tough love in this program, okay? You are expected to follow the things that we tell you and do them. And we obviously hope for the best, right? Some of it's going to be luck after everything else. But if you are someone that has to be reminded 100 times to do simple things, that also is going to reflect also in a little bit of like your time management skills, or perhaps the way you'll be later on, you know, when you start residency. You don't want to do that. And maybe you are someone who just takes on too much. So you also have to be careful about, you know, time management. We teach you that, stress control, all of that during the time that you join our comprehensive plan, which is the platinum or the basic plan, okay? Any questions? Currently, I'll put the QR code up here again. I would be very happy to mentor you and work with you. We have a whole bunch of other physicians that are part of our program, including residents attending from different specialties. And I also like to mix it up with people like Ms. Taylor, who's been in the, you know, like New York City corporate world, helping people interview and really strengthens you on your interview skills and way to approach things. And, you know, like we're here to help, but you have to do the work and you have to believe in us, okay? So thanks so much to everybody for joining us. We look forward to bringing you more programs like this to help you answer your questions. If you have any questions, reach out. You can scan this QR code, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Antika.
Good morning.